Right, so tonight I'm asking the question, are Jews rubbish at sport? And but first of all, we've got to define what sport is. So those of you that listened to the first talk in this, you will remember that I said about 12,000 years ago, men stopped being hunter-gatherers. So they stopped going out and hunting large beasts to cook for their dinner. Instead, they stayed at home and they cultivated crops. They understood how to look after domesticated animals, and everything became much easier. And obviously they had much more free time. So the drawing on the right is from a cave in Egypt. There have been other caves found, and as I'm sure you can make out, on the walls we see figures of people who are involved in archery or swimming. This cave is has been known as the swimmer's cave. So the theory goes that because man didn't have to hunt and work hard, he could stay at home, he could go to the refit and milk his cows and kill his cows and have a steak. So he had much more free time. So what did he do in his free time? They had sporting events like swimming and archery, and that's how sport started. But if you ask most people, when did sport really start? Most people would point you to the Olympics, which were founded in 776 BCE. And the Olympics were very, very linked in Greek mythology. So Strabo, who is a Greek historian who I regularly read, he wrote, "The glory of the temple persisted on account both of the festal assembly of the Olympic Games, in which the prize was a crown," okay, that kind of laurel crown that you see in the movies, "which were regarded as sacred, the greatest games in the world. The temple was adorned by its numerous offerings, which were dedicated there from all parts of Greece." So when they ran the games, okay, the games were, so this temple that you see here, this is the temple, I think it's Olympi, and the first Olympic Games were arranged to keep Zeus, who was the most important of the Greek gods, to keep him entertained. And someone is not on, one second, someone not on mute. Okay, it's better. So as I mentioned, the Olympic Games were held for Zeus's amusement. The first events that were held were mainly running events. So Heracles, I think it was, he won the first Olympic running event. And after that, they added on other events as well. For example, wrestling, pentathlon. Pentathlon, was originally running, discus javelin, what else? Long jump and wrestling. That was the pentathlon. And then again, after a number of years, chariot racing was equestrian events. Chariot racing became a big part of the Olympics. In fact, it was recorded that in the Roman Emperor Nero, and now we're going ahead, Nero lived, he lived just before the destruction of the temple. So he lived in the 1st century CE. He competed and he actually fell off his chariot, but they actually awarded him the chariot race. He won the Olympic gold medal because they said that if he'd finished, he would have won. Okay, it's good to be the king. Anyway, importantly, all these events, as I'm sure you can see from the figurine, all these events were held completely in the nude, which is an important point, no pun intended. Okay, so where did the athletes train? This, I think, is also from Olympi. You see at the top here, the athletes trained in a gymnasium, which comes from the Greek word gymnos meaning nude. Okay, and the athletes all trained in the nude, and the gymnasium was a center for athletic training. But soon the gymnasium developed into something much more than that. It developed into a center of excellence, of education, of health, and it also became a place that philosophers would come to. So in Athens, for example, there were 3 gymnasia, the Academy, the Lyceum, and the Cynosarges. And Plato, who was a famous Greek philosopher, he founded a school that gathered at the academy. And the Greeks very much believed that physical health was intensely linked to first of all, good health in general. So special exercises would be prescribed for specific diseases. But more than that, even the Greeks believed that physical health and mental health went together. Okay. In the bottom picture on the right-hand side, you can see the first gymnasium in Israel. Gymnasium was a school. Okay, and this is the Herzliya Gymnasium that was the first school in modern day Tel Aviv. It was originally founded in 1905 in Jaffa. It moved to Tel Aviv, and then in the 1960s, the original structure was knocked down to make way for Migdal HaShalom, and the school moved to where it is today in northern Tel Aviv. But the gymnasium, and the name is not by accident. The modern founders of Zionism wanted to have a school of excellence for secular studies and move away from that, from the Beis HaMedrash. Okay, that wasn't part of the plan. Okay, the clash of civilizations. So here you see on the right-hand side, this is my mentor of physical education. This is Andreas George Chichios, or Chich, as he was known to his pupils. I was going to say his friends, but he didn't have too many friends. He's, by the way, he's still alive. He's not a Greek. He's a Cypriot Greek. Okay, and he lives in Cyprus to this day. And this motley crew that you see on the left-hand side was 4CJ. So this would be, I was 15. Okay, you can see me here in the back row with all these sort of geeky, the very tall geeky boys. Here I am on the extreme left-hand side. And most of these boys were not interested at all in physical education, in running. A large number of them would prefer to bunk off games or go behind the bike shed for a quick smoke. And of course, there were a scattering of religious boys here who, as well as not being very good at games, just wanted to go and learn Gemara, and they didn't want to be involved in games at all. So Mr. Chichios, he faced a continuous battle against the chutzpah of the boys, against, and obviously against the headmaster and administration of this so-called educational facility that were also not at all interested in physical education. But let's go back to the question, are Jews any good at sports? So in 1896 was the first modern Olympic Games, and Jews actually did very well. So they won 13 medals, 9 of them gold, and they won medals in swimming, gymnastics, and cycling. So Jews were good. Jews were very good at physical activities. And in 1898, at the Second World Zionist Congress in Basel, the gentleman on the right, who is Max Nordau, he was the joint founder of the World Zionist Organization together with Herzl. He proposed a theory known as Muskeljudentum. That is the theory of the muscular Jew, that the Zionists with physical might would also bring about spiritual strength. And the idea was that the Jews would be muscular and sporty and physical, and they would work the land and they would redeem the land. And this was completely, he was a Hungarian, he was a westernized Jew. And this, of course, was completely the opposite of the image of the Nebuch Jew, the Hasidic Jew, the Jew with the side locks in the Beis HaMedrash, head spectacles bent over his blat of Gemara. Okay, so in the 1920s, Yosef Kutieli, he dreamt of a sporting event that the Jews of Palestine could compete in, because the Jews of Palestine didn't really have a state. They were administered by the British. So in 1921, the Maccabi sports organization was established. Okay, Maccabi, after Yehuda HaMaccabi, who stood up, ironically somewhat, stood up to the Greeks, okay? But Maccabi also means, in Aramaic, it means the hammer. So this whole, it fitted in with this image of physical might for Jews. In 1932, the first Maccabean Games were held in Tel Aviv. Okay, they're exclusively for Jews, and Israeli Arabs can take part in the Maccabean as well. And in 2017, there were 10,000 athletes from 85 countries that competed in the Maccabean, which makes it the third largest sporting event after the Olympics and the FIFA World Cup. Okay, so Jews at the Olympics. So in 1936, the Nazi government said this. They said that they're not discriminating. So obviously they didn't allow any Jews to be on the German team. And they said they're not discriminating against Jews. It's just Jews are eliminated because they're not good enough as athletes. But again, the idea, and I mentioned this already, the idea that Jews were not good as athletes was not true. Those of you that have seen the film Chariots of Fire will have heard of Harold Abrams, who in the 1920s, don't remember exactly which, I think maybe 1924, does that work out? 24, 32, 36, yeah. So 1924, he won a gold and a silver medal. And between 1896 and 1932, that was the games prior to the Berlin Olympics, Jews won no less than 50 gold medals, 37 silver medals, and 32 bronze medals. And in fact, between 1896 and 2014, Jews have won 101 gold medals, 144 silver medals, and 101 bronze medals. It's mainly in the Summer Olympics, some in the Winter Olympics as well. So Jews, pretty reasonable at sport. And I'm sure you've heard of, Mark Spitz, obviously you've heard of. Dana Torres is an Olympic swimmer around the year 2000. She's also won, I think she won 12 gold medals in all. And the lady that you see on the right-hand side is Agnes Coletti, and that's an interesting story. So she has 10 medals. She was a gymnast, and she was born in Hungary. She competed for Hungary in the 1952 and the 1956 Olympics, as I said, winning 10 medals. She's Jewish. She was thrown out of the gymnasia in Hungary in 1940s as the sympathy for the Nazi government in Hungary increased. And she actually survived the war she took on the identity of a Christian, and she married a non-Jew, and she managed to survive as a maid. And as I said, she competed in 52, 56. Her sister and her mother, I think, also survived the war. Her father was transported off to Auschwitz, where he died. After she finished competing, in the 1950s, she made Aliyah to Israel, I think in the 1950s. She also competed in the Maccabean. And she lived for a long time in Herzliya. She's still alive today, and she lives in Budapest. She went back to Budapest and she lives there. She's 99 years old today. She's 99 years old, and she's the oldest surviving Olympic gold medal winner. Okay, so Jews are okay at sport. Are Israelis any good at sport? So this is our grand total of medals at the Olympics, pretty feeble. So from 1992 to 2016, which is 6 Olympics, we won 1 gold medal, which was won by Gal Friedman in windsurfing at the Athens Olympics. We won 1 silver medal and 7 bronze medals. I think most of the bronze medals, well, at least 3 or 4 of the bronze medals, I think, came in judo. But a grand total of 9 medals, which is really pretty feeble. And if we look at football, soccer, okay, so Israel has only once qualified for the World Cup final, which was in 1970, when we were in the Oceanic group competing against the might of Australia and New Zealand. And we actually managed to qualify for the World Cup final, where we played 3 games and lost them all. In all the other years, Israel never qualified for the World Cup final, and we really frankly haven't come very close. Of course, we suffer a little bit from the disadvantage of being lumped in the European qualification, but Israel's had on and off has had pretty decent football players. Here you see one, Eyal Berkovic, famously being booted in the head by John Hartson, but he's used to being booted in the head, having been booted in the head last week by Miri Regev as well. So Israel football is pretty zero, I think. And Israel sport, for some, it's very strange. Israel sport is on an international scale is really pretty poor. And I thought I'd just end with a quick clip just to show you how good Israel football really is. I don't really follow Israeli football, but here is a game between Achi Natseret and Herzliya.
שחקנה של אחי נצרת נפצע, נכנסו אלונקאים, ניסו להרים אותו, אבל כשלו בתפקידם, אחד מהם עזב, והשחקן בעצם נפל אל קר הדשא. מי שחש לעזרתו הוא הקפטן של אחי נצרת, אמג'ד סלימאן.
איך חש לעזרתו? הוא לבד עלה לאלונקה.
רגע. אמג'ד סלימאן ראה שהאלונקאים לא עושים את עבודתם נאמנה, לקח אותו כמו שלוקחים תינוק.
והשחקן קם.
השחקן קם, ואתם יודעים מה, כשאין הרבה כדורגל וכשאין שערים, אז גם לצחוק מפעם לפעם זה טוב.
תקשיב, אנחנו יכולים לצחוק.
Okay, that's it for this